I found the fraud on a Wednesday morning and it was beautiful. That sounds wrong. Let me explain. I'm a forensic accountant. I've been doing this for 10 years, since I was 22 and fresh out of UIC with a master's degree and a job offer from Desai and Associates, a mid-size firm in downtown Chicago. My job is to find money that someone tried to hide, and most fraud is ugly, messy. People get greedy and they get sloppy and they leave trails a child could follow. But this one, the one I was looking at that Wednesday, was different. The person who'd done it understood accounting. They'd layered the transactions through 3 shell companies and a fake vendor account with a name that almost matched a real one. They'd timed the transfers to coincide with quarterly tax payments so the amounts wouldn't look unusual. It must have taken them weeks to set up. I sat at my desk with my coffee, cold. I'd made it at 7 and it was almost 10 and I just stared at the screen for a minute, admiring it. The way you'd admire a painting or a piece of music. Not because what they did was good, because they were good at it. And then my phone rang. Priya, Beta, my father's voice. He always calls me Beta. It means child in Hindi, but the way he says it, it's more like a job title. The responsible one. The one who answers the phone. The accountant quit. I leaned back in my chair. The office was quiet. Most of the partners were in a client meeting, and the only sound was the hum of the HVAC and someone's keyboard clicking 3 cubicles over. Which accountant? For the stores, David. He gave 2 weeks, but I told him just go. If he doesn't want to be here, I don't want him here. My father has run Desai Grocery for 35 years. 3 stores on Devon Avenue, the original one near the intersection of Devon and Western, and 2 more he opened in the 90s. He came to Chicago in 1985 with $800 and a green card, and he built something real. But he's never been good with people who work for him. He takes it personally when they leave. David was good, I said. He kept clean books. He was expensive, and now he's gone. A pause. I could hear the sound of the store behind him, the beep of the register, someone asking where the turmeric was in Hindi. I need you to look at the books, just for a few weeks, until I find someone new. I have a full caseload, Papa. I'm auditing a construction company right now, and I've got a divorce case with hidden assets that's... Family helps family, Priya. 4 words. I'd heard them my whole life. Family helps family. It's what he said when I worked the register at 15 instead of going to the movies with my friends. It's what he said when I deferred my first real job offer to stay in Chicago instead of moving to New York. It's what he said when I paid for Anjali's medical school textbooks with my signing bonus, because your sister needs this investment and you're doing well. I looked at the screen. The beautiful fraud was still there, the numbers still glowing in neat columns. Somewhere in Chicago, someone was about to get caught because they'd been too clever for their own good. And I was good at catching them, really good. Fine, I said. Send me the files. I'll have Manoj drop off the USB at your office this afternoon. Manoj was the store manager at the Devon and Western location. He'd been there since I was a kid. He used to give me free mango lassi when my father wasn't looking. Okay. Thank you, Beta. I knew I could count on you. He hung up. I sat there with my cold coffee and my beautiful fraud and the feeling, the one I always got when my father said those words, that I was being asked to carry something that should have been shared. But that was the deal, wasn't it? I was the responsible one. Anjali was the successful one. And my father was the one who decided which daughter got to be which. My sister is 2 years older than me. Dr. Anjali Desai, attending physician at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, internal medicine. She has a condo in Streeterville with a view of the lake and a boyfriend who's a cardiologist and a life that looks exactly like the one my parents dreamed of when they came to this country. She's the one my father brags about at Temple. She's the one whose photo is on the wall behind the register at all 3 stores. Dr. Anjali Desai, my daughter the doctor. I'm the one he calls when something breaks. My mother died when I was 15. Breast cancer diagnosed in April, gone by September. The kind of timeline that doesn't leave room for hope. I was a sophomore in high school and Anjali was a senior and my father just stopped. Not physically. He still went to the store every morning at 6. But the rest of him, the part that asked about homework, the part that noticed when you were sad, the part that remembered there were 2 teenagers in the house who had just lost their mother, that part closed down like a store at the end of a long day. So I learned to do things. Laundry, grocery shopping, making sure Anjali had lunch money and a ride to school and someone to help her with her college applications. I was 15 and I became the person who remembered. My mother used to do that. And then she was gone and someone had to do it, so I did. When Anjali got into Northwestern for pre-med, I was the one who filled out her FA/FSA. When my father needed someone to cover the register on weekends, I was the one who showed up. When Anjali needed money for her MCAT prep course, $2,200, I still remember the number. I was the one who gave it to her from my summer job at a bookkeeping firm in Skokie. I didn't mind. That's the thing. I didn't mind doing any of it. Because I loved my sister and I loved my father, and that's what you do when you love people. You show up. You carry things. You don't keep score. Or at least that's what I told myself. The afternoon manage dropped off the USB. I stayed late at the office. Everyone else had gone home, the partners, the other associates, the receptionist who always left at exactly 5:01, and I was alone with the hum of the HVAC and the view of the Chicago skyline through the window. The buildings were lit up the way they always are at night, a wall of light against the dark lake. I plugged in the USB and opened the first file. Desai Grocery wasn't a complicated business. Revenue from 3 stores. Expenses for inventory, payroll, rent, utilities. The books David had kept were clean. I could see why my father thought he was expensive. Good accountants are worth what they cost. But something caught my eye in the first 5 minutes. A vendor payment to a company called Lakeside Produce. The amount was right, about what you'd expect for a week's worth of fresh vegetables for 3 stores. But the payment date was a Saturday. And I knew, because I'd worked at the store since I was 15, that my father never processed payments on Saturdays. Saturday was the busiest day of the week. He didn't touch the books. He didn't even open the office door. I told myself it was nothing. A mistake, David rushing to catch up on a Monday and backdating the entry. It happens, but I didn't believe it. I've been doing this too long. I closed the file and went home. My apartment is in Rogers Park, a 1-bedroom in a building on Sheridan Road. I've lived there for 6 years. It's not fancy. The radiator clanks in the winter and the elevator smells like someone's lunch about 40% of the time. But it's mine. Well, not just the apartment. I own the building, all 8 units. I bought it in 2018 with money I'd saved for 6 years, every bonus, every extra assignment, every weekend I worked instead of spending. I was 24 and I'd never told anyone in my family what I was doing. Not my father, not Anjali. Not my aunt in Schaumburg or my cousins in Naperville. Nobody, because I knew what would happen. The moment my family found out I had money, real money, building equity money, they would need it. There would be a crisis at the store. Anjali would need a loan for something important. My father would have an emergency that only I could solve. And I would say yes. Of course I would say yes. I always said yes. So I kept the building a secret. I told myself it was smart, that I was protecting my future, building something that was just mine. And maybe that was true. But it was also true that I was hiding. Hiding the one part of my life that I'd built entirely for myself. The radiator clanked. I made tea, chai, the way my mother used to make it, with cardamom and too much sugar. I sat on my couch and looked out the window at the lights along Sheridan Road, and I thought about the vendor payment dated on a Saturday. It was probably nothing. But I was going to look anyway, because that's what I do. I look at numbers until they tell me the truth. And I had no idea, sitting there with my chai and my secret building, and the October wind rattling the windows, that the numbers were about to tell me something I wasn't ready to hear. The Saturday payment sat in my head like a song I couldn't stop humming. I went back to the office the next night, and the night after that. Everyone else would leave, the partners at 5, the associates at 6, the receptionist at exactly 5:01, and I'd stay. The HVAC would cycle on and off, and the cleaning crew would vacuum around my chair, and I'd just sit there, going through my family's books one transaction at a time. I told myself I was being thorough. That's what forensic accountants do. We're thorough. We're paid to be suspicious. But the truth is, I knew something was wrong by the end of the second night. I just didn't want to know it yet. The Saturday payment to Lakeside Produce was $4,237, not a huge amount for a grocery business. But when I traced the payment through the bank records, it didn't go to any produce distributor in Illinois. It went to an account at a credit union in Skokie. An account that had been opened 3 years ago and had received exactly one deposit every 2 weeks since then. Always between $3,000 and $5,000. Always on a weekend. Always to the same account. I wrote down the account number on a post-it note. My handwriting looked strange to me, smaller than usual, like I was trying to hide the numbers even from myself. The next payment I found was to a company called Midwestern Supply Co. The amount was $6,200. The invoice in the file said it was for packaging materials, bags, boxes, the plastic containers they use for the hot bar at the Devon and Western store. But when I cross-referenced the invoice number with the actual inventory records, there was no corresponding delivery. No boxes, no bags, no hot bar containers, just an invoice and a payment and nothing else. I sat back in my chair. The office was dark except for my desk lamp and the glow of my monitor. Outside, the Chicago skyline was doing its thing, all those lights, all those buildings full of people who were home by now, eating dinner, watching TV, not sitting alone in an empty office finding things they didn't want to find. 4 more payments, all to different vendors. All with invoices that didn't match any actual deliveries. All going to accounts that didn't belong to any company I could find in the Illinois Business Registry. I added them up. $47,000 in 4 months, just from the Devon Street store. I hadn't even looked at the other 2 stores yet. My hands were cold. The office wasn't cold. The heat had been on since October, but my hands were. I looked down at them on the keyboard and they looked like someone else's hands. The fingers too still, the nails too neat. I thought about calling my father, but what would I say? "Papa, I found something in the books. Someone's been taking money." And then he would ask the question I didn't want to answer. Who? Because I already knew who. The wire transfer authorizations all had the same signature on them. A signature I'd seen on birthday cards and loan documents and medical school applications for the past 15 years. Anjali Desai. Not a forgery. Not an imitation. Her signature. The same looping A and the same rushed D, and the same way the S always tilted a little to the left because she never learned to hold a pen correctly. Our mother used to try to fix it. "Anjali, hold the pen like this." But Anjali never listened, and now her signature was on 16 wire transfer authorizations, and $47,000 was missing from our family's business. I closed the files. I shut down my computer. I sat in the dark for maybe 5 minutes, just breathing. The HVAC clicked off, and the silence was the kind of silence that fills up your ears until you can hear your own heartbeat. My sister was a doctor. She made $240,000 a year at Northwestern Memorial. She had a condo in Streeterville and a cardiologist boyfriend, and a life that was supposed to be perfect. Why would she need to steal from a grocery store? Unless the life wasn't perfect. Unless the condo had a mortgage that was too big and the boyfriend had expectations and the image, the one my father had built his pride around, cost more to maintain than anyone knew. I didn't know. I didn't know anything for sure. I only knew what the numbers said. And the numbers said my sister had been stealing from our family for at least 4 months. Maybe longer. Maybe since 2022, that's when the credit union account was opened. 3 years ago. 3 years of $3,000 to $5,000 every 2 weeks. Do the math. 3 years is 156 weeks. Half of that is 78 payments. At $4,000 each on average, that's $312,000. Give or take, maybe less, but maybe more. I drove home at 11 o'clock at night. The streets were wet. It had rained while I was inside, the first cold rain of October, the kind that smells like wet leaves and exhaust. The lights along Sheridan Road reflected off the pavement in long orange streaks. My building was quiet. Mrs. Kowalski in 3B had her TV on. I could hear it through the door as I walked past, the muffled sound of a late-night talk show. The radiator in the hallway was clanking. The elevator smelled like someone's dinner. Everything was the same as it had been yesterday and the day before and the day before that. But nothing was the same, because yesterday my sister was doctor. Anjali Desai, the pride of the family, the success story my father had been telling for 34 years. And today she was someone who had been stealing from a family business. From a father who worked 6 days a week and had come to this country with $800 and who trusted her completely. I made chai. My hands were still cold. I wrapped them around the mug and stood by the window and watched the rain turn into mist over the lake. Somewhere out there, in a condo in Streeterville with a view of the water that was probably better than mine, my sister was sleeping. Or not sleeping. Maybe she was lying awake worrying about the same thing I was worrying about. Maybe she knew the books would catch up to her eventually. Maybe she thought she was too clever to get caught. That was the thing about the fraud I'd found on Wednesday morning, the beautiful one, the one with the layered shell companies and the fake vendor account. The person who'd done it was good, really good, but I caught them anyway. Because no matter how good you are at hiding money, the numbers don't lie. They can't. That's the whole point of accounting. Every dollar has to go somewhere. Every debit has a credit. Every lie in a ledger eventually shows its seams. Anjali wasn't a good fraud. She was a sloppy one. Weekend payments. Fake vendors with no business registry. A signature she'd been using since middle school. She hadn't even tried to hide it, because she never thought anyone would look. She never thought I would look. And that was the part that I kept coming back to, standing by the window with my chai getting cold, the radiator clanking, the October rain streaking the glass. My sister had stolen hundreds of thousands of dollars from our family, and she hadn't even bothered to cover her tracks. Because the person who was supposed to catch her, the person whose entire professional life was built around catching people exactly like her, that person was invisible to her. I was invisible to her. Not in a dramatic way, not in a way I could point to and say, see, this is what she did. It was smaller than that. It was the way she never asked about my job, the way she introduced me at parties. This is my sister Priya, she does accounting stuff. The way she'd borrowed $2,200 for her MCAT prep course and never paid it back and never mentioned it again. The way she assumed I would always be there to clean up whatever mess she made. She wasn't wrong. I had always been there. I had always cleaned up. But this wasn't a $2,200 test prep course. This was $47,000 in 4 months. And I had a feeling, a cold, specific feeling that started in my stomach and worked its way up into my throat, that the 4 months were just the beginning of what I was going to find. I didn't sleep that night, or the night after. I spent 3 days going through every transaction from all 3 stores going back to January 2022. The pattern was the same everywhere. Fake vendors, weekend payments, wire transfers to accounts that didn't match any real business. Anjali's signature on every authorization form, the same tilted S she'd been writing since 7th grade. The total was $247,000, give or take. I had it down to the dollar in a spreadsheet on my laptop, $247,183 across 62 transactions over 44 months. She'd started small, $1,500 here, $2,000 there. But by 2025, the amounts had grown to $5,000, $6,000, once even $8,500. She was getting comfortable, greedy, the way they always do. She'd also opened 2 credit cards in the business name, Desai Grocery LLC. I found the statements in a folder marked tax documents that David, the accountant who quit, had apparently never opened. The cards had a combined balance of $43,000. The payments were being made from the store's operating account, which meant my father was paying them without knowing they existed. I sat at my desk on the third night and closed my laptop and stared at the wall for maybe 20 minutes. The wall was beige. The kind of beige every office has. I'd looked at that wall for 6 years, and I'd never really seen it before. Now I was memorizing the texture of the paint. $247,000 in stolen money. $43,000 in credit card debt. My father, who worked 6 days a week, who'd never taken a vacation longer than 4 days, who still drove a 2012 Honda Accord with 180,000 miles on it, was paying interest on credit cards he didn't know existed. And Anjali drove a Lexus. I'd seen it in her Instagram posts. White, leather interior. The kind of car that costs $700 a month on a lease. I knew where the $700 came from now. On Friday morning, I called my father and asked him to meet me at the Devon Street store. Not at home, not at the temple, at the store. I wanted him to see the office, the filing cabinet where the fake invoices were stored, the computer where the wire transfers had been authorized. I wanted him to see what I had seen. He was there when I arrived at 10. He was sitting behind the desk in the back office, a small room behind the produce section that smells like onions and cardboard. The desk was metal, the kind they sell at office supply stores for $200. The chair he sat in had a tear in the armrest that had been there since I was in high school. Priya, beta. He smiled. He looked tired. He always looks tired, but he smiled. You said it was important. I sat down in the chair across from him, the same chair I'd sat in when I was 15 and doing homework after school while he worked. The same chair I'd sat in when I was 22 and showing him how to use QuickBooks. The same chair I'd sat in 100 times, 1,000 times, always the helper, always the fixer. Papa, I need to show you something. I opened my laptop and turned it toward him. I'd made a summary sheet. I knew he wouldn't understand the full forensic breakdown, just the basics, the fake vendors, the wire transfers, the credit cards, the total. He looked at the screen. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then, this is a mistake. David made errors before he left. He was angry. David didn't sign the wire transfer authorizations. I clicked to the next page, the scanned copies of the authorization forms, Anjali's signature, 16 of them. Anjali signed them. His face changed. Not much. My father isn't expressive the way some people are, but his eyes changed. The skin around them tightened. These are... He stopped, started again. Anjali is a doctor. She makes good money she doesn't need. Papa, my voice came out quieter than I meant it to. The numbers don't lie. He stared at the screen, at his daughter's signature, at the $247,000 that had walked out of his business over 3.5 years while he worked 6 days a week and drove a car with 180,000 miles on it. I'll talk to her, he said. I already have the documentation. I can help you file. I'll talk to her. He stood up. The chair rolled back and hit the wall. This is a family matter. We'll handle it in the family. Papa, this isn't a misunderstanding. This is fraud. This is... Priya. His voice was sharper now, not angry at Anjali, angry at me. You don't accuse your sister of something like this without talking to her first. That's not how family works. I closed the laptop. My hands were steady. That surprised me. They should have been shaking, but they were perfectly still. I'm not accusing her, I said. The records are accusing her. I'm just the person who read them. He didn't answer. He walked out of the office and into the store, and I heard him tell Manoj something in Hindi, something about a delivery, something ordinary, and then the back door opened and closed and he was gone. I sat in the office for a long time. The smell of onions, the torn armrest, the hum of the refrigerators through the wall, everything the same as always. Anjali called me at 7:15 that night. I know the time because I was sitting on my couch with a bowl of dal and rice, and the microwave clock said 7:15 when my phone lit up with her name. Anjali. What is wrong with you? Her voice was high and tight, not the doctor voice, the sister voice, the one she used when we were teenagers and I'd borrowed her shirt without asking. "I assume Papa talked to you." "He called me at work." "At work, Priya. Do you know how that looked? My father calling the nurses' station because my sister is making crazy accusations about me stealing money." "I'm not making accusations. I reviewed the books. Your signature is on 16 wire transfer authorizations. The money went to accounts that—" "This is unbelievable." She laughed, but it wasn't a real laugh. It was the kind of laugh people use when they're trying to make you feel small. "You've always been like this. You've always been—" She stopped. "Always been what?" "Jealous." The word landed like a slap. "You've been jealous of me since we were kids. Because I'm the one who made something of myself. Because I'm the one Papa is proud of. And now you're trying to what? Make up some story about stolen money so you can finally be the good daughter." I set the bowl of dal on the coffee table. My appetite was gone. "Anjali, I have bank records. I have wire transfer confirmations. I have credit card statements. This isn't a story I made up." "You went digging through the business accounts looking for something to use against me. That's what you do, isn't it? You find things. You're a forensic accountant." She said it the way someone would say garbage collector. "You couldn't stand that I was successful and you were just—" "Just what?" "The one who stayed. The one who never left Devon Avenue. The one who does everyone's taxes and lives in a one-bedroom apartment and thinks that makes her the good person in the family." I looked around my apartment. The radiator was clanking. The chai on my windowsill had gone cold again. I have a habit of letting drinks get cold. The lights along Sheridan Road were orange through the rain. I thought about telling her about the building, the 8 units, the equity I'd built while she was leasing a Lexus and maxing out credit cards in our father's name. I thought about telling her that my one-bedroom apartment was the top floor of a building I owned outright, that I was worth more than she was and always had been. But I didn't, because that's not who I am. I don't fight with money, I fight with numbers. And the numbers were on my side whether she knew about the building or not. "I'm going to send you the files," I said. "The bank records, the wire transfers, the credit card applications. You can look at them or not, but the bank is going to look at them, and the state is going to look at them, because this isn't about me and you anymore. This is about $247,000 that doesn't belong to you." Silence, long enough that I checked to see if she'd hung up. Then, "You're going to regret this." "Why?" "Because nobody in this family is going to believe you. You know what Papa said to me. He said your sister is confused. She's been working too hard." "He doesn't believe you, Priya. He never believes you. You're the one who cleans up messes. You're not the one who makes them." The line went dead. I sat on my couch with the phone in my hand, and the dal getting cold on the coffee table, and the radiator clanking and the rain against the window. Outside, the orange lights of Sheridan Road blurred and ran. She was wrong about one thing. My father didn't think I was confused. He knew the evidence was real. But she was right about the other thing. He wasn't going to believe me. Not because he thought I was lying. Because believing me would mean admitting that the daughter he'd built his pride around, the doctor, the success story, the photo on the wall behind the register, had been stealing from him for 3.5 years. And that was a truth he wasn't ready to face. The calls started the next day. My aunt in Schaumburg. "Priya, what are you doing? Your sister is very upset." My cousin Vikram. "I heard you're making some serious allegations. You should be careful with that stuff." My father's sister in Naperville. "Family doesn't do this to family. Whatever happened, you work it out privately." Anjali had gotten to all of them. She told them I was jealous, unstable, obsessed, that I'd always resented her success, that I was trying to tear the family apart, and they believed her, because she was Dr. Anjali Desai, and I was just Priya, the one who did the taxes, the one who answered the phone when something broke, the one who was supposed to clean up messes, not make them. By Sunday night, I'd been removed from the family group chat. My father wasn't returning my calls. Anjali had blocked me on everything: phone, Instagram, even LinkedIn. My aunt in Schaumburg had left me a voicemail saying she was praying for me. The way you pray for someone who's sick. I sat in my apartment on Sunday night and I looked at my laptop. The spreadsheet was still open. $247,183. The evidence hadn't changed. The numbers hadn't changed. The truth hadn't changed. But my family had. In 4 days, I'd gone from the responsible daughter to the villain of the story. And I hadn't done anything except read the records. The radiator clanked. The rain kept falling. And somewhere on Devon Avenue, my father was closing up the store alone, the way he did every night, while the daughter who'd stolen from him slept in a condo in Streeterville with a view of the lake. I didn't know what to do next, but I knew one thing: Anjali had made a mistake. She'd assumed that cutting me off from the family would make me stop. That the shame of being excluded would be worse than the need to tell the truth. She didn't understand me at all. I'd been invisible in this family for 32 years. Being officially excluded wasn't that different from being quietly overlooked. The silence felt almost the same, and I still had the records. I still had the truth. I closed the laptop and made chai and stood by the window. The rain had stopped. The streets were wet and shining, and the lights along Sheridan Road stretched toward the lake like a promise someone had made and forgotten to keep. I didn't know it yet, standing there with my chai and my spreadsheet and my family falling apart around me, but someone else had been watching. Someone who'd seen what Anjali was doing long before I had. Someone who'd been too scared to say anything, and he was about to call. The call came on a Tuesday, November 12th. I remember the date because I'd been staring at my phone for 3 days waiting for my father to call back, and he hadn't. The number on the screen was the Devon Street store. My heart did something, a kind of jump, not hope exactly, but the memory of hope. I answered on the second ring. Priya Desai. Ms. Desai, not my father's voice, deeper, Nigerian accent. My name is Ebenezer Okonkwo. I work at the store. I have been the bookkeeper there for 12 years. I knew who he was, Mr. Okonkwo. He worked in the back office, the one next to the produce cooler. He'd been there since I was in college. Quiet man, early 60s. Always wore a tie even though the store had no dress code. He came to my mother's funeral in 2009. I remembered that. He stood in the back of the temple and didn't say anything to anyone and left before the reception. Mr. Okonkwo, is everything okay at the store? A pause. I could hear the hum of the refrigerators behind him, the same hum I'd been hearing since I was 15. I have something I need to give you, he said. Something I should have given someone a long time ago. We met at a coffee shop on Western Avenue. Not the one near the store, a different one, further south, where nobody from Devon Avenue would go. He was already there when I arrived, sitting at a table in the corner with a cardboard box on the chair next to him. He looked older than I remembered. His hair had gone fully gray, and his shoulders had the kind of curve that comes from bending over a desk for too many years. But his eyes were sharp. The way people's eyes get when they've been keeping a secret and they're finally ready to let it go. Ms. Desai. He stood up when I approached, formal. He always was formal. Please sit and call me Priya. He sat. He pushed the box toward me. It was an old printer paper box, the kind with a lid that folds over. Inside, I could see the edges of ledger books. The paper kind. Handwritten. These are my personal records, he said. I have kept a separate set of books for the Devon Street store since 2014. When David was hired, he told me to stop. He said everything was digital now, but I kept them anyway. Why? He looked at his hands. They were big hands, the knuckles swollen the way older men's hands get. Because I saw things that did not add up. Payments to vendors I had never heard of. Transfers authorized by someone who did not work at the store. I brought it to David once in 2022 when the first payment started. He told me it was none of my concern. He said the owner's daughter had approved everything. The owner's daughter, Anjali. David knew. I do not know what David knew. I know that after I asked, he changed the password on the accounting software. He told me to focus on inventory. He said the books were handled. Mr. Okonkwo looked at me. His eyes were steady. I have worked for your father for 12 years. He gave me a job when nobody else would. I came to this country in 2003 with nothing. Your father, he is a good man. And I watched his daughter steal from him for 3 years and I said nothing. Why didn't you say anything? The question came out harder than I meant it to. He didn't flinch. Because I was afraid, he said. I am not a citizen, Ms. Desai. I have a green card. I have a daughter in community college and a wife who works as a home health aide. If I lost my job, if there was trouble, who would believe me? The Nigerian bookkeeper accusing the doctor, the owner's daughter. He shook his head. In this country, people like you do not accuse them. It does not end well. I understood. I didn't like it, but I understood. Fear makes people silent. I'd been silent for 32 years in my own family, and I had every advantage he didn't. But you're talking now. Because you started asking questions. Because David is gone and your father asked you to look at the books. Because I knew the moment Manoj told me you were reviewing the accounts that you would find it. You are a forensic accountant. And you are. He paused. You are the one who always told the truth in that family, even when nobody wanted to hear it. I opened the box. Inside were 6 ledger books with black covers. Each page was filled with careful handwriting in blue ink, dates, amounts, vendor names, account numbers, the same information I'd spent 3 days pulling from the digital records but going back further, all the way to January 2022, the very first fake payment, and something else, a 7th book, smaller, red cover. What's this one? Mr. Okonkwo looked at the red book and his face changed. Something passed over it, reluctance maybe, or shame. That one is different, he said. That one is not about the store. I opened it. The entries were requests, loan applications, credit inquiries, all in the name of Desai Grocery LLC, all authorized by Anjali Desai. And at the bottom of the last page, dated 3 weeks ago, October 22nd, 2026, was an entry I had to read 3 times before I believed it. Loan application. Midwest Business Credit. Amount, $75,000. Applicant, Priya Desai. Social Security number, my number. Employment, Desai and Associates. Collateral, 4521 North Sheridan Road, Chicago, IL. My building, my social security number, my name. She'd used my name. The coffee shop went blurry. Not from tears, I wasn't crying. From something else. The way your vision narrows when your brain is processing something that shouldn't be possible. She applied for a loan in my name, I said. My voice sounded like someone else's, flatter, further away. I found the application in the store office 2 weeks ago, Mr. Okonkwo said quietly. It was in a folder with other loan documents. She listed the store as the business and you as the personal guarantor. She used your social security number and the address of your building. He paused. I did not know you owned a building, Ms. Desai. Nobody in my family knows. He nodded, didn't ask. Mr. Okonkwo understood secrets. She used my identity to apply for a loan, I said again. Saying it twice didn't make it feel more real. That's a felony. That's not just stealing from the business. That's identity theft. That's... I know what it is. He leaned forward. That is why I called you. The money from the store, that was one thing. I could stay quiet about that. I am not proud of it, but I could. But this, using your name, your social security number, this is different. This is not just greed. This is trying to destroy you. I closed the red book. My hands were cold. When I looked down at them, they were perfectly still. That was the thing about me. When things got bad, my hands got steady. It was the rest of me that shook. Will you testify to what you've told me? Mr. Okonkwo was quiet for a long moment. Outside, a bus went by on Western Avenue. The windows rattled. Yes, he said. I should have testified 3 years ago. I will not make that mistake again. I took the ledgers to Marcus Chen the next morning. Marcus is the senior partner at Desai and Associates. He hired me 10 years ago, straight out of UIC. He's in his late 50s now, a third-generation Chinese-American who grew up in Bridgeport and built one of the best forensic accounting firms in Chicago. He has a reputation for being thorough to the point of obsession. He once spent 6 weeks reconstructing a single day of transactions for a divorce case. The client's husband had hidden $3 million in a crypto wallet, and Marcus found it by tracing a $14 Starbucks purchase. He looked at the ledger book spread across his conference table. He looked at my spreadsheet. He looked at the red book with the loan application and my social security number. Your sister did this. Yes. And the loan application. She used your identity. Yes. He took off his glasses, rubbed his eyes, put them back on. Priya, I've seen a lot of ugly family situations in this job. Money makes people do things you wouldn't believe. But this. He tapped the red book. This is not just ugly. This is a crime, a serious one, the kind that gets referred to the state's attorney. I know what it is, Marcus. That's why I'm here. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he pulled his laptop toward him and started typing. I'm going to validate everything. The ledger entries against the bank records, the loan application against the credit bureau, your social security number against any recent inquiries. He paused. This is going to take a few days, and once I validate it, this stops being a family matter. You understand that? Yes. Once we file a suspicious activity report with the state, and we will have to file one, that's not optional, your sister is going to be investigated. The business accounts will be frozen. Your father will find out. Everyone will find out. I know. He nodded, didn't try to talk me out of it. That's one of the things I've always appreciated about Marcus. He knows when someone has already made up their mind. I went home that night and sat on my couch and stared at the wall, not the beige one from the office. The wall in my apartment, the one with the crack in the plaster that runs from the ceiling to the window frame. I'd looked at that crack 1,000 times and I'd never really seen it before. Now I was memorizing its shape. My sister had my social security number. She had the address of my building, the secret I'd kept for 8 years, the one thing that was just mine. She knew about the building. She'd found out somehow. Maybe through a property record search. Maybe through a credit report. It didn't matter how. What mattered was that she'd tried to use it, and she'd almost gotten away with it. If David hadn't quit, if my father hadn't asked me to look at the books, if Mr. Okonkwo hadn't kept his secret ledgers, if I hadn't been a forensic accountant whose entire professional life was built around catching people exactly like my sister. The loan application was dated October 22nd. It had been sitting in a folder in the store office for 3 weeks. Midwest Business Credit typically takes 4 to 6 weeks to process a loan of that size. The clock was ticking. I didn't know it yet, sitting there with my crack in the plaster and my secret building that wasn't secret anymore, and my sister's crimes spread across my coffee table like evidence at a trial. But the system was already working. The bank's fraud detection algorithm had flagged the application the day it was submitted. An investigator had been assigned. Letters had been sent. The truth was already on its way. I just didn't know it yet. Marcus called me 4 days later, November 16th, a Saturday. He never works on Saturdays. I validated everything, he said. The ledger entries match the bank records. The signatures match your sister's known handwriting. The loan application has your social security number and your building address and a signature that is not yours. He paused. I've been doing this for 32 years, Priya. This is one of the cleanest cases I've ever seen. Your sister didn't just steal. She left a paper trail any first-year auditor could follow. What happens now? Now we file the SAR, and you make a decision. You can take this to the police, or you can let the state financial regulator handle it through the banking system. Given the identity theft, I recommend the regulator. It's faster. And it creates a paper trail that your family can't ignore. File it. Priya. File it, Marcus. He was quiet for a moment. Then, okay, I'll file it Monday morning. I hung up and sat on my couch and looked at the crack in the plaster and waited for whatever came next. I had everything. The
Тут на
ledgers,
горі
the
наверху є.
validation, the proof. 6 books filled with careful handwriting. A loan application in my name that I'd never signed. A sister who'd been stealing for 3.5 years and had escalated to stealing my identity. I had the truth. And the truth was about to land in the one place Anjali thought was safe. The letter from the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation arrived on a Tuesday, November 26th, the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. It was addressed to me at my office, not my apartment, not the store. Someone at the bank had done their homework. The letter was brief and formal, and it said that a loan application submitted under my name and social security number had been flagged for review. It said that Midwest Business Credit had forwarded the application to the regulator's fraud investigation unit. It said that I should contact an investigator named Diane Okonkwo, no relation to Mr. Okonkwo, the letter specified, which I appreciated, to discuss the matter. I read it standing in the mailroom at Desai and Associates. The fluorescent lights were buzzing the way they always buzz. Someone's package from Amazon was on the counter next to the mail slots. The radiator in the corner was clanking. Everything was normal, and I was holding a letter that meant my sister was about to be investigated for identity theft. I called Investigator Okonkwo from my desk. She answered on the first ring. Her voice was professional, not cold, but not warm either. The voice of someone who had seen enough fraud cases to know that every one of them was someone's family falling apart. Ms. Desai, thank you for calling. I've been reviewing the application. Can you confirm that you did not authorize a $75,000 business loan through Midwest Business Credit? I did not. I've never heard of Midwest Business Credit. And you did not list 4521 North Sheridan Road as collateral. No, the word came out sharp. That address was mine and nobody else's. And the social security number on the application is yours. Yes. A pause. I heard typing in the background. Ms. Desai, I need to inform you that this matter is now an open investigation. The application has been frozen. No funds will be dispersed, but we will need to speak with the individual who submitted the application. Do you know who that is? My sister, Anjali Desai. The typing stopped. I see. Another pause. That complicates things, but it doesn't change the investigation. Do you have documentation that supports your claim? I have 6 ledger books covering 3.5 years of embezzlement from the family business. I have a forensic audit validated by a senior partner at my firm. I have a witness, the store bookkeeper, who kept backup records and is willing to testify. And I have a loan application in my name that I didn't sign. The typing started again, faster this time. I think, Investigator Okonkwo said, I should come to Chicago. She arrived on December 3rd, a Thursday. The sky was the color of old snow, that flat gray Chicago does in December when it can't decide whether to storm or just be cold. I met her at the Devon Street store at 2 in the afternoon. Mr. Okonkwo was there, waiting in the back office with his ledger books. Marcus had sent over the validated forensic report by courier that morning. My father was behind the register, the way he always was on Thursday afternoons, and he looked up when I walked in with a woman in a dark suit carrying a briefcase. Priya! His voice was careful. What is this? This is Investigator Okonkwo from the state financial regulator. She needs to see the office, and she needs to speak with Anjali. Anjali is at the hospital. She's working. I know. I called her. She's on her way. My father's face went through several emotions in quick succession. Confusion, then fear, then something that looked a lot like anger, not at Anjali, not yet. At me, at the situation, at the fact that his carefully maintained world was about to crack open in the middle of a Thursday afternoon while customers bought turmeric and basmati rice 20 feet away. You should have told me you were bringing someone. I tried to tell you, Papa. 4 weeks ago, you chose not to listen. Anjali arrived at 2:22. I know the time because the clock on the office wall said 2:22 when she pushed through the back door in her hospital scrubs, navy blue, the kind surgeons wear with her hair pulled back and her hospital ID still clipped to her collar. Dr. Anjali Desai, Northwestern Memorial Hospital. She looked like she'd come straight from a shift. She probably had. What is this? She looked at me, then at Investigator Okonkwo, then at my father, then back at me. You dragged me away from rounds 4. Ms. Desai. Investigator Okonkwo stood up. I'm an investigator with the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation. I need to ask you some questions about a loan application submitted under your sister's name and social security number. The change in Anjali's face was small, almost invisible, but I saw it. The color in her cheeks shifted, not paler exactly, but different. The way a screen changes when the brightness adjusts. I don't know what you're talking about. The application was submitted on October 22nd through Midwest Business Credit. It listed Priya Desai as the applicant and 4521 North Sheridan Road as collateral. Your sister says she didn't submit it. Anjali's eyes flicked to me, just for a second, but it was enough. I don't know anything about a loan application. Priya has been making accusations about me for weeks. She's... Ms. Desai. Investigator Okonkwo's voice didn't change. It was the same calm, professional tone she'd used on the phone. Before you say anything else, I should tell you that we have the application. We have the IP address it was submitted from. We have the notary stamp that was used, a notary who, when contacted, confirmed she notarized the document at your request at this store on October 21st. And we have Mr. Okonkwo's testimony that he found the application paperwork in a folder in this office. The back office was very quiet. The hum of the refrigerators, the distant beep of the register, someone asking where the turmeric was, everything still happening, everything normal. And in the office, my sister's face was falling apart, not dramatically, not the way it happens in movies, just the muscles around her mouth, the way her eyes stopped focusing on anything, the way her hands she'd been holding her phone dropped to her sides. She stopped, looked at my father. He was staring at her. His face was gray. Papa, I can explain. My father didn't say anything. He just stood there with his back against the wall of the office he'd worked in for 35 years, next to the filing cabinet where his daughter had hidden the evidence of her crimes for 3.5 years. Ms. Desai. Investigator Okonkwo opened her briefcase. I have copies of the loan application, the wire transfer records from the store accounts, and the forensic audit report. I'd like you to look at these and tell me if you recognize them. She didn't look. She was still staring at my father. Papa, please, let me explain. Explain what? His voice was hoarse, the voice of someone who was watching a thing he'd believed his whole life turn out to be a lie. Explain how you stole from the store, from our family, he looked at me, actually looked at me, maybe for the first time in years, from your sister. It wasn't like that. I needed the money. The condo, the car, the life everyone expected me to have. Do you know what that costs? Do you know what it costs to be the successful one? To be the one everyone brags about? Her voice was rising. I was drowning, Papa. I was drowning and nobody noticed because everyone was so busy being proud of me. So you stole. I borrowed. I was going to pay it back. $247,000, I said. My voice came out flat. Clinical, the way it sounds when I'm explaining a fraud pattern to a client. Over 62 transactions across 44 months, plus $43,000 in credit card debt, plus a $75,000 loan application in my name. That's not borrowing, Anjali. That's systematic theft. She turned to me. And for a moment, just a moment, the mask was gone. The successful doctor, the pride of the family, the daughter who could do no wrong, all of it stripped away. And underneath was someone I didn't recognize, someone who looked at me with a kind of hatred I'd never seen before. Not anger, not resentment, hatred, pure and simple. "You," she said, "you did this. You couldn't stand that I was better than you, that I was the one who made it. So you dug through the books until you found something, anything, you could use against me. I found $247,000 you stole from our father, and a loan application in my name. That's not something, that's everything. This is," she looked around the office, "at my father, at Investigator Okonkwo, at Mr. Okonkwo, who was standing in the corner by the filing cabinet, his hands folded in front of him, his face unreadable. This is not fair. None of this is fair. I was just trying to survive." "Ms. Desai," Investigator Okonkwo stood up. "I'm going to recommend that you cooperate fully with this investigation. Based on the evidence I've seen, you're facing potential charges of embezzlement, fraud, and identity theft. How this proceeds from here depends largely on whether you choose to help or obstruct." Anjali stared at her, then at my father, then at me. "Papa," she said, "please." My father looked at her. His face was the color of the December sky outside, gray, flat, emptied of weather. He opened his mouth, closed it, shook his head. "I have to think," he said. "I have to." He didn't finish the sentence. He walked out of the office and through the store and out the back door into the parking lot where it was starting to snow. Anjali watched him go. Then she turned back to me. "I hope you're happy," she said. "I hope getting your revenge was worth destroying this family." "This isn't revenge, Anjali. This is accounting." She laughed. It was the same laugh she'd used on the phone 4 weeks ago, the one that was supposed to make me feel small. But it didn't land the same way now. It sounded thin, hollow, the laugh of someone who'd run out of other options. Investigator Okonkwo asked her to sit down. She did. Mr. Okonkwo opened his ledger books on the desk. Marcus's forensic report was spread across the table. The evidence was everywhere. You could see it. You could touch it. You could trace every dollar from the store accounts to my sister's credit union in Skokie. The truth was out. Not in a courtroom. Not in a board meeting. In the back office of a grocery store on Devon Avenue, with the smell of onions and cardboard and the hum of the refrigerators and the first snow of December falling in the parking lot outside. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was just true. And once the truth was out, it couldn't go back in. Anjali could lie, she could try. But the records didn't lie. The 7 ledger books on the desk didn't lie. Mr. Okonkwo, standing in the corner with his swollen knuckles and his 12 years of silence, didn't lie. The numbers told the story. They always did. The investigation took 4 months. Anjali's license wasn't suspended. The medical board wasn't involved. This wasn't about her practice. But the state financial regulator referred the case to the Cook County State's attorney. She was charged with embezzlement and identity theft. Her attorney, a man in a suit that cost more than my father's car, paid for with money I didn't want to think about, negotiated a plea. Restitution, probation, community service. No jail time, which was what my father wanted. He paid for the attorney. I found that out later. He cashed in a retirement account. His daughter had stolen $247,000 from him, and he still paid for her lawyer. Because that's who he is. Because family helps family. The business accounts were frozen for 3 weeks while the investigation was active. My father had to take out a line of credit to cover payroll and inventory. He didn't complain. He just did it. The same way he'd done everything for 35 years. The credit cards were canceled. The wire transfers stopped. The fake vendors disappeared from the books. Mr. Okonkwo was promoted to head bookkeeper, which should have happened 10 years ago. I helped him set up a digital accounting system, no more handwritten ledgers, although he kept the black-covered books in a filing cabinet in his apartment. "Just in case," he said. I understood. Anjali resigned from Northwestern Memorial in January. She told people it was for personal reasons. The hospital didn't release any information, and her medical license wasn't affected, so most people believed her. She moved out of the Streeterville condo, the one with the lake view and the cardiologist boyfriend and the life that was supposed to be perfect. The boyfriend left. I don't know the details. I didn't ask. She moved into an apartment in Naperville near our aunt, smaller, cheaper. She got a job at an urgent care clinic. She started paying restitution, $1,200 a month, court-ordered, deducted from her paycheck. At that rate, it would take her about 17 years to pay back what she stole. I did the math. Of course I did the math. I'm an accountant. We didn't speak. Not once. Not at the court hearings. Not at the family meeting my aunt tried to organize in February. Not when my father called me on a Sunday in March and asked, his voice old, older than I'd ever heard it, if I thought Anjali and I would ever talk again. I don't know, Papa. She's still your sister. I know. She made mistakes. They weren't mistakes. A mistake is forgetting to pay a bill. She opened fake vendor accounts and forged signatures and applied for a loan in my name. That's not a mistake. That's a plan. He was quiet for a long time. I could hear the store behind him, the register, the customers, the same sounds I'd been hearing since I was 15. I should have listened to you, he said. When you first came to me, I should have believed you. Okay. That's all you have to say. What do you want me to say, Papa? You chose her. You always chose her. And I've made my peace with that. I didn't choose her. His voice cracked. I thought you were strong enough to handle things on your own. You always were, even when you were a little girl. After your mother died, you handled everything. I didn't have to worry about you. And Anjali, she was always so fragile, so I worried about her instead. I sat on my couch. The crack in the plaster ran from the ceiling to the window frame. The radiator was clanking. The February light was gray and thin. Being strong doesn't mean I didn't need you to choose me, I said. It just means I survived when you didn't. He didn't have an answer for that. Neither did I. The business survived. That's the part that mattered to my father. The stores stayed open. The employees kept their jobs. The customers kept buying turmeric and basmati rice, and the hot bar stayed stocked with samosas and pakoras. Manoj, the store manager, took over more of the day-to-day operations. My father started taking Sundays off for the first time in 35 years. He didn't know what to do with himself. He called me once on a Sunday to ask if I thought the store would be okay without him for one day. I told him the store had been okay for 35 years because of him, and it would be okay for one day without him. He didn't sound convinced. Mr. Okonkwo and I had coffee every few weeks. He'd bring his daughter sometimes, a quiet girl named Grace who was studying accounting at DePaul. She wanted to be a forensic accountant. Like you, Mr. Okonkwo said, and he smiled when he said it. The first time I'd seen him smile. Your father is a brave man, I told Grace once. He kept records for 3 years because he knew the truth would need backup. She looked at her father. He looked at his hands, the same swollen knuckles, the same careful fingers that had written every fake payment into a ledger book with blue ink. I should have spoken sooner, he said. You spoke when it mattered, I said. That's what counts. My building was still mine. The loan application had been frozen before any funds were dispersed, and my credit was unaffected. I had Marcus's office send a letter to all 3 credit bureaus explaining the situation. It took 6 weeks and 17 phone calls, but my report was clean. I thought about selling the building, starting fresh somewhere else, a different neighborhood, a different city. Somewhere nobody knew my name, or my family's name, or the story of what had happened in the back office of a grocery store on Devon Avenue. But I didn't, because this was my building. I'd bought it when I was 24 with money I'd saved for 6 years. I'd fixed the radiators and replaced the roof and painted the hallway the color of cream instead of the industrial beige it had been. Mrs. Kowalski and 3B had lived there for 11 years. The couple in 2A had just had a baby. The grad student in 1C always paid his rent 3 days early. This building was mine, and I wasn't going to let anyone take it from me. Not even my sister. In April, my father asked me to come back to the store, not to look at the books. Mr. Okonkwo was handling those now, just to visit, to have lunch, to sit in the back office the way I used to when I was 15. I went on a Saturday. The store was busy, Saturdays are always busy, and the register was beeping and someone was asking where the cardamom was, and the smell of the hot bar filled the whole building. The samosas were fresh. Manoj was behind the counter, the same way he'd been behind the counter when I was a kid. He gave me a free mango lassi. I didn't ask. He just made it and handed it to me. My father was in the back office. The same metal desk, the same torn armrest on the chair. The same hum of the refrigerators through the wall. Nothing had changed. Everything had changed. Priya, beta. Hi, Papa. He stood up. He didn't hug me. My father has never been good at hugging. But he put his hand on my shoulder and left it there for a moment. That was something. I have been thinking, he said. About what you said, about choosing. I waited. You were right. I should have chosen you. I should have believed you. I should have. He stopped, started again. When your mother died, you became the person who held everything together. And I let you because it was easier for me, and that was wrong. I looked at him, at his gray hair, at his tired eyes, at the hands that had worked 6 days a week for 35 years to build something from nothing. It's okay, Papa. It's not okay. No, but it's what happened, and we're still here. He nodded. His eyes were wet. He didn't cry, my father doesn't cry. But his eyes were wet and he nodded, and then he sat down behind the metal desk and pulled out a ledger. The new one. The one Mr. Okonkwo had set up on the computer. I want to show you the books, he said. I want you to see that everything is clean now. I sat down in the chair across from him. The same chair I'd sat in when I was 15 and doing homework. The same chair I'd sat in when I was 22 and showing him quick books. The same chair I'd sat in when I was 32 and trying to tell him his other daughter had been stealing from him for 3 years. Show me. And he did. I still have the spreadsheet on my laptop. The one with all 62 transactions mapped out over 44 months. $247,183. I don't look at it often, but I haven't deleted it either. Some things you keep not because you need them, but because erasing them would mean admitting they never happened. The fraud I found on a Wednesday morning, the beautiful one, the one that started everything, seems like a long time ago now. A different person found that fraud. A different person sat at her desk and admired the technique and drank cold coffee and thought her biggest problem was a client who was too clever for his own good. That person didn't know her sister had been stealing. That person didn't know her family would choose the thief over the truth-teller. That person didn't know she was strong enough to survive being cast out by the people she'd spent her whole life taking care of. I know now. I know all of it. My sister stole $247,000 from our family. She tried to steal my identity. She tried to use my building, the one thing that was mine, as collateral for a loan she had no intention of paying back. And when I caught her, she told everyone I was jealous and unstable and obsessed. And they believed her, for a while, until the numbers proved otherwise. The numbers don't lie. They can't. Every dollar has to go somewhere. Every debit has a credit. Every fraud, no matter how carefully constructed, leaves a trail. And the person who trained me to follow those trails, the woman who pulled me aside when I was 16 and taught me how to read a property record like it was telling a story, she told me something I've never forgotten. The system keeps records. The system doesn't forget. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, the system works the way it's supposed to. My phone buzzed while I was writing this. A text from Mr. Okonkwo. The quarterly reconciliation was done. The books were balanced. Everything was where it was supposed to be. I typed back 3 words, good, thank you. Outside my window, the April sky was doing something unfamiliar, something I hadn't seen in a while. The sun was out. The lake was blue instead of gray. The trees along Sheridan Road had small green buds on them, the kind that mean winter is finally over, the kind that don't look like much, but if you pay attention, you can see them getting bigger every day. The radiator was quiet. Spring in Chicago, the 1 week between freezing and humid, where the air feels exactly right. Mrs. Kowalski was on her balcony in 3B, watering plants that had been dead since October. I could hear her humming something I didn't recognize. I closed my laptop. The spreadsheet was still open underneath everything, $247,183 in 62 transactions. But I minimized it. I didn't close it, but I minimized it. And then I made chai. The way my mother used to make it, cardamom and too much sugar. I drank it while it was hot. That felt like something.